Good evening, everybody. Welcome to the Recreation and Amenities Committee here at Biddle Town Council on the 11th of February. Once again, Andrew Councillor Hart is unable to be with us this evening, but he did call me and ask if I could do this. So in his absence, I will chair tonight's meeting. And before we begin, I've got to say the usual YouTube disclaimer. So this meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to the Biddle Town Council YouTube page. The aim is that decision making should be transparent and in the public domain, which will involve more of our community and local democracy. By being in this council chamber, you are consenting to being recorded and for your image to be added to YouTube. The images and sound may be used for training purposes. Any views expressed are the speaker's own and do not necessarily reflect the view of Biddle Town Council. Please view the guidance on recording in public meetings policy if you need more information. Thank you. So, without further ado, we will start with item 56. Apologies and approval of any substitute members. Do we have any?
There are no substitute members, but apologies from councillors Hart, Jones, Harper and Smith.
Thank you very much indeed. Declarations of interest. Do we have any disclosable pecuniary interest and dispensations or any other interests? Thank you. Obviously, if as the meeting goes on, you do find that you do, just please let it be known at the time. Item 58, the minutes. To approve and sign the minutes of the Recreation and Amenities Committee meeting held on Tuesday, the 14th of January, 2025. And everybody here in this room approved those at the Town Council meeting that has just completed. So we're okay with that. Everybody agree? Still, everybody show of hands. We all still approve. Thank you. Changed our mind.
Will you sign those?
I will. Thank you. Yeah, that was everything. Okay. Item 59. To receive feedback on the allotments annual meeting held on the 4th of February 2025 and to agree future actions. And obviously, again, at the Town Council meeting, we heard from Councillor Rogers about the meeting and it was a very successful one. So feedback, is that from you, Chief Officer?
Yes, I'm happy to tag team anybody else who wants to.
Councillor Rogers.
From our perspective, it was very positive. We obviously have an annual meeting every year for allotment holders, and it's their opportunity to come and join us and tell us whether there's any issues they want us to resolve, ask questions. So we've obviously, as this committee has gone through quite a process of reviewing our allotments policy, we've introduced the registered a registered person that can join a tenancy agreement. So everyone was quite keen to get the feedback on that, which was very positive. There were a number of actions that we took from that, quite easily resolvable ones. So from the Park Lane site, there were concerns that one of the neighbours has very high hedges, but we'd sent some letters as regards that in November, and then we're delighted to receive a message at the start of this week saying that somebody's dealt with those. So that was very positive and actually didn't require any additional action from us. Some concern about glass on the pathways at Park Lane that hadn't been raised by us previously, but we've committed to going and have a look at what that is. I suspect it's bits of greenhouse that have smashed during the we'll take that forward. And somebody else was concerned about a mulberry tree which was being cut by a new tenant. So there's a conversation to be had around that. At Moorland Road, again, there were hedging questions there. So obviously the Moorland Road site is one that we rent off Staffordshire Moors District Council. So strictly speaking, the hedges are their responsibility. Historically, they haven't always cut those back when we've been asked. So we have taken the action to pursue them and hope that they will cut those back. In the past, we've asked our landsman to do it just because it blocks light on the site. So, but we'll start the process with the District Council initially and see where we get with that. In terms of kind of feedback from both sites, there was a conversation about a slight amendment to polytunnel sizes within the policy, so we agreed to amend that. and there was quite an extensive discussion with both sides about wood chippings and muck deliveries and whether we could help facilitate that. So we weren't entirely sure we could help to facilitate that, but we were, obviously happy for them to sort that out. And then at the end of the meeting, the Park Lane team who were there started a WhatsApp group, which is an absolute revelation for them.
And quite apt, based on the headlines that are coming through at this moment in time.
They've never had a WhatsApp group before. They've got a notice board where they share lots of information, but this was quite new for them.
That's
excellent. Quite marvellous. We were very sorry to learn at that meeting that Barry Harrison, who has been the secretary at Park Lane for a long time, is really poorly at the moment. So we sent our best wishes to him and sent a card on behalf of all of us to him via one of the other allotment holders. So we're quite fortunate that Mick, who's an allotment holder there, will take forward the kind of stewardship of that site until we know whether Barry will recover or what will happen next, really. So we did send our very best wishes on behalf of the council.
Thank you very much indeed, Chief Officer. Mr. Mayor, you wanted to comment?
Yes, just a comment about the hedges at the boundary and the fact that they are SNDC's responsibility. Those hedges have got two sides, and I've received quite a few representations about the border of those hedges on actual Congleton Road. When you turn into Congleton Road from the Thames Drive roundabout, it was restricted a little bit. So could I request, Chief Officer, that if you are mentioning the hedges, they cut actually both sides, because they had the responsibility. I did think it was going to be a resident's responsibility, but having looked at the map following the allotment meeting, it is actually the same hedge on both sides. And that will make an improvement to visibility going up Congleton Road. And then if there are any issues, if you can send it this way, I'll put some pressure on as well.
We'll start that process.
Thank you much indeed, Mr. Mayor. Councillor Rogers.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, it was a very constructive meeting, as the Mayor mentioned earlier on. Every chair around the table was full. There was people actually sitting behind as well. It was a pleasure to chair that meeting in many ways, because thanks to the staff and Angela, in many ways, all the issues that were raised last year about now been rectified and reported back on that they've been done for this year. And there wasn't many to go through again for this season, which was nice to hear, really. There's no major issues at all, just little things in some ways, which can soon be resolved. So the allotment committee really is going from strength to strength. It was mentioned by Councillor Jackson about the other site, and I'd like to try and chase that. I've been site visit with you, must be teens of years ago now, must be. So if we could try and get that ongoing, and then see what we can do between us this season, ready for next season. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Rogers. Link Councillor.
Yeah, I used to chair this meeting many moons ago, and it was one of those meetings where you felt should I wear a tin hat in armour, because it was often quite like that with with many of the allotment holders. So we're obviously doing something right and something better than what we have done in the past with them. But just I'd like to comment on actually the demographic of the allotment holders. I think it's changed over the years as well. There seem to be a lot more younger people. And, I mean, not overflowing, but a lot more younger people at that meeting than probably I've seen in a long time, I think. So to me, that's if you've got younger people coming in sort of at the bottom, the whole thing, the allotment scene becomes more sustainable, and people aren't dying off and nobody replacing them. And we've got how many? 22 on the or something like that.
20s.
Which again, 22 people that would like to take on an allotment. I realise not all of those, definitely would, even if we got the Shepherd Street site up and running. But I do think we should. Financing, obviously permitting, because we're not in a great place at the moment with financing. But if we can somehow look to push forward the Shepherd Street site, I'd certainly be happy to do that. If it means actually just sending a leaflet round to the people who on the neighbours, just to see whether they are still in the same without setting hairs running. But we did a survey many years ago, and the vast majority of the people living in and around that site were happy to become allotments. And I know there's issues with parking and one or two other things, but they're not insurmountable, I don't think.
Councillor Jackson. Okay.
Yeah, I wonder whether it's worth mentioning as well that we talked about the event that we're hoping to hold towards the end of September, which is the homegrown and event. And there was a lot of enthusiasm about that, which was really positive. So they're all going to try and start growing the wonkiest marrows or the longest spring onions, things like that. So that was really positive as well. And they've been very positive about the garden festival that we'd had last year and how good they thought that was at promoting allotment gardening and involved in that. So all very positive. Thank you.
Okay, item 60. To confirm actions in relation to repairs to memorials at the burial ground. This is.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So you'll recall from previous discussion committee that we had the getting on for 4,000 memorials tested across all of our burial sites. There were only 12 that failed. And the process that we have to take following that is in conjunction with the diocese. And then we had to advertise to try and locate the owners of those graves to try and essentially ask if they would put those right. Our discussions with the team at St Lawrence's and our further investigations have identified that there are no owners coming forward for those 12. So we're in a position now where, knowing that there are issues with those, we need to think of something to rectify that. So I have made contact with the Moors Partnership Board because certainly 3 of those memorials would be classed as historic memorials. Thinking about the one that Councillor Rogers talks about, the very big cross at the entrance of Congleton Road, that's a class as a historic memorial. They would be interested in funding that. So really for me, knowing that we have been through the process that we need to with regards to the diocese and we're unable to identify people who may fix those, obviously they're very old, so no members of the family have moved away or there isn't a direct descendant. I think it would be appropriate to put it in a grant application to Moors Partnership Board and see if we can get certainly the first stage of those memorials part funded through Moors Partnership.
Councillor Jackson.
The 3 historic ones that have been reported as what are unsafe or need work or right, okay. So the alternative if we don't do it is the delayed.
We'd want to try and avoid that.
Well, I'm saying the alternative would be for them to be laid, which I agree. So what we're actually going to be taking on here is whatever the cost of that is, we'll have to fund 50%. If we do get the full grant, we'll have to fund 50% of that. So obviously we're going to have to do some figures and see what that cost might be. I'm not saying I'm against it. I'm not. If we can get 50% of it, and I think something like I think probably one of them I know that's probably in a dubious position. It is a very prominent one, and if that was laid down flat, I think it would cause a lot of uproar, not just from family of whoever might be planted in there, but also I think people that go and use that grave. Because I think there's nothing looks worse than headstones that are laid flat. It makes the whole graveyard look sort of unkempt and unwanted. So I propose that we go ahead and put a bid together towards partnership.
Yeah, I think we've looked at a sort of 3-phase approach of dealing with the most obviously dealing with the most urgent first. So I don't think the figures that we would have to put to it would be astronomical. Albeit I don't want to say too much because we obviously need some more quotes, but we've had one set of figures back, which seems manageable.
Okay.
Well, you obviously need those to the bidding too.
Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor Jackson. Mr. Deputy Mayor.
I'd just like to ask, please, for a bit of clarification. as to what makes a memorial historic. Is it its structure, stroke for want of a better word, architectural interest, or is it the residents that it portrays?
Is very interesting. I suspect it's a mixture of both, could be both of those. In these ones, they're very old and the structures themselves are quite unusual in terms of the rest of the site. But if you were to look at the Heath family memorials, for example, there's nothing very flashy about those in comparison to others around them. But obviously you might say that the Heath grave was, you know, of more significance historically. I'm not 100% sure what becomes a kind of historic memorial, but I think if they're happy to make that judgment, then I think it's a positive way forward, just for us to kind of get some action really on that.
Thank you. Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, just anecdotally, I mean, obviously the Heaths were a prominent family and therefore had, you know, on the ways and means, they were prominent graves. Are there no living descendants of the Heath family with connections to Biddulph at all anymore? Is it a family which is, I honestly don't know. But it was a large family at the time, wasn't it? And typified by that building opposite, you know, they were very heavily involved up until, you know, about 80, 90 years ago. So it's not that long ago, is it?
Yeah, I only mention the Heath because they were a prominent family. Their grave is
Their grave's
fine.
fine.
Oh, right.
It's a discussion about the person who's in the structure itself, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was looking up the bad one, you see.
It's ironic that the Heath family is troubled with substance at the moment.
Councillor Brady.
I second Councillor Jackson's.
You certainly can. So Councillor Jackson's proposal, which was to,
Go ahead with the application to the Moorlands Partnership, back with the figures.
come back with the figures.
That's it. If you're happy with that,
Absolutely.
then we'll bring all that back.
So there's the proposal, seconded by Councillor Brady. All those in favour? Go for it. Yeah, obviously. Item 61, to consider next steps for the new Garden of Remembrance at Woodhouse Burial Ground, and there is additional paperwork within your packs to cover that. As you can see, the planning permission and some design, I think there's a design brief as well as over to you, Chief Officer.
So you've got within your packs the decision. So obviously we've got full permission for the development of the new section of the Garden of Remembrance at the Woodhouse Burial Ground. It comes with some caveats, which I suspect, as these things do, may cost us some money. So we need to submit a biodiversity gain plan. And then we also need to consider a habitat management and monitoring plan as part of that. I think our architect is probably best placed to move forward with those, but there will obviously be a fee attached to that. I think it would be appropriate, given the conditions attached to this, if we asked them to provide a quote for the additional work that's necessary to fulfil those so that we can move forward.
Oh, sorry, Councillor Powell, yes.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. All I was going to say is, can I propose that Chief Officer secures a quotation from CTD Architects to discharge the conditions associated with the permission?
I'll just let Councillor Rogers come in before we, and then Councillor Jackson before we.
Yeah, it's just another comment about, I think it's just a standard phrasing about habitat management. I don't think there's much habitat just in that section, so I'm not sure.
For clarification on that, there's a criteria for biodiversity net gain, which is something which is in 2022. So if a development is over a certain size, then you've got to not just maintain that level of biodiversity, but enhance it by a minimum of 10%.
Minimum 10%, yeah.
It can be done on site or it can be done off site. So if there was a scheme of works equivalent to biodiversity net gain, we could do it, for example, by sponsoring a food plant activity elsewhere in the town about biodiversity. Okay.
So just clarifying it.
So we do submit the paper.
Yeah. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, a couple of things. I remember seeing some designs for the Wibbly Wall and post box for letters and the whole host of things. So is the idea then to go to our architects to draw up even a more detailed thing and, you know, with how many potential plots are going there and the rest of it? I'm not sure. I thought we passed.
We have.
Go ahead.
You know, we have. So that's been granted.
Right.
The whole scheme has been granted. So within your pack, you can see that we've got full permission.
Yeah.
That's for 333 cremation burial plots.
All right, I haven't read that.
With the hybrid wall, metal gazebo, paving seating, all of that included within that.
Right,
The conditions attached to it now is going to require further involvement. from
right,
the
okay.
Before we can get on site and do that. I think going forward, when we've got over this hurdle, we'll also have to decide how much of the project we want to do in one go. But I
Okay.
think we need to get going.
Well, we have a proposal then from councillor Proudlove.
Could I suggest, I don't know whether, you know, whether it's worthwhile, but I think with the work that we've been doing at the front, I think the working groups scenario worked quite well with that. Just wondering whether it's worth setting up a small working group to work, you know, work in conjunction with the architects or what have you, and then bring back a recommendation. I mean, we're obviously, funds are tight, but I think we as a council probably are going to have to go into a position with our reserves at a position where they are not really are going to be below the recommended amount of reserves. Excuse me, we should carry. So, but I think, you know, this is going to be a money maker as well as just an outlay. We're going to get money back for this over time. So, and we haven't got that much room left in the old one, have we?
No, it is a project that we do need. to-
Yeah, so I'm thinking a working group might help to move that along a lot more
So
quickly.
we've got two proposals then, I see.
Fine.
Because I've got the first proposal from councillor Proudlove, seconded by the mayor, that you, the chief officer, approach the architects to look at and to come up with a proposal of costs for the conditions that have been set within the planning, the discharging the conditions. And then we have a second proposal from councillor Jackson that we should set up a working group to work with the architects moving forward in light of those.
I think that would be helpful for us.
Okay, so we'll do them one at a time. So the first one, councillor Proudlove's proposal that we approach the chief officer approaches the architects to get together with to put together the costings for the conditions. Everyone in favour? Anyone against? Nope, there we go. And the second one, which was councillor Jackson's, is that it proposes that we put together a working party
Need
to
to
work.
second it.
Oh, sorry, have we got a seconder? The proposal is this: we put together a working party to work with the architect, seconded by councillor Brady. All those in favour?
Yep.
Thank you very much indeed. Okay, item 62. To approve the half-size memorial, this is going back to looking in your paper, your packs again. Approve a half-size memorial for the new Garden of Remembrance at Woodhouse Burial Ground. And the design ideas are in, or the design idea is in your packs.
We just want to move forward a couple of things at the same time, really. Just so that we can manage expectations when this area is created. So we've had somebody mock up what is, excuse me, exactly what it says. Is it, excuse me, it's a half-size memorial. So the idea is that it would look like that. That's what we've got in the packs. Within that then is our amended memorial application form. So then people are, obviously there's a selection of different memorials that they can put there. And the dimensions would be included within that. Are you happy to amend the form? Are you happy with the memorial itself? We need some discussions, I think, about whether, as with the current Garden of Remembrance, and we can talk about this at another time if you want to, have them all on it, but with the current Garden of Remembrance where we've written bars, they are all the same colour. So you need to give some consideration to whether you want them all to be the same size in this section, but whether you mind whether they are all the same colour. So a grey one could be next to a black one. that would-
Okay,
So for discussion.
okay, starting then with councillor Rogers.
Yeah, it should. Technical thing for me, with saying half size memorial, I don't think it should scrap the bit half size and say the size, because 21 inches or 42 inches stands that high. The memorial stones don't stand that high, don't they, do they?
No, that's just what it's called in the business.
I'm saying, but half size, you think one that big is normal, so you can get one that big, just in your mind, it's highlight.
It's based on area as opposed to height.
Yeah, just say 21 inches by 16, or it puts in metric terms nowadays, whichever.
No, leave it where it
No,
is.
they love an inch. Memorial.
I prefer inches, but.
Yeah, they do. Councillor Jackson.
Can we send a letter to the Bloggs family who lost 4 members of the?
I know, seriously. What a
Space time.
They've had a hell of a time, haven't they?
They want to put some lottery numbers on for them.
Been on luck.
They've had a tough time.
Councillor.
Councillor Law.
Yes. When we are considering people's preferences to vary this a little bit, the size is one factor, colour's been mentioned. One might say, do you wish to pay attention then to the finish? Because sometimes you can have polished finish, or you can have a rougher, unpolished finish. So that's another factor. Yet another factor would be, does it matter about the colour of the, I don't know what you call it, what you actually emphasise the inscriptions with? Is it gold? Is it silver? Could it be anything? Do we need to specify that?
Colour of the text.
The colour, yes, whatever the colouring is. And then perhaps one other little detail, perhaps, regarding, is there any objection to sort of, I would say, pictures or other attachments being applied to it, which sometimes is what people like. So there are a number of factors, not just the basic colour, I think, to consider.
I'm not sure I really have a preference. The rest of the Woodhouse site, whilst the sizes are pretty standard, there are lots of different colours, and it makes for a nice tapestry.
It does, yeah.
There's something very nice about the Garden of Remembrance on the other side, where all the bricks are the same colour. That looks good with the chippings being the same. So I don't think I have a preference really. As long as the sizes are standard, I think that's the important thing. But
Personally, I would have agreed with you until I started to go to some of the war graves. And then I suddenly realised that seeing hundreds of identical gravestones is incredibly moving. But that's an irrelevant point.
Would that be Cannock Chase?
That's one of them, but the First World War graves in France and Belgium, I'm thinking particularly, but Cannock Chase, yeah, absolutely. The German graves being all black, the European, the Allied graves being all white, it's quite an unbelievable thing. But anyway, so.
we don't necessarily need to make a decision. No, you do. That will be the expectation, and then obviously memorial masons that we use regularly within the town will kind of start to stock up on things.
I mean, I think it's important that we have to give the families some element of choice, don't we?
Up to you. I think it's Crewe, isn't it, where they're all exactly the same.
Yeah, well, the
Well,
first
yeah,
lot started out exactly the same. The second lot, there seems to be a little bit of variation being allowed. And some of it seems a little bit less peaceful than others might.
Yeah.
I put it.
Yeah. But we can govern that so we can give them an element of choice, but not enough choice to come up with something garish and awful.
And
I think the overarching thing with this is we've got to get the maximum amount of space used up for the maximum number of memorials that we can get in there. I think that's to me, that's the overriding thing. I don't think there should be any sort of real waste of any land down there that can be used for memorials, as far as we make it look nice, aesthetic, the wobbly wall, wibbly wall, wavy wall. Not got a problem with it at all, but the space that we've got there needs maximising.
Okay, well, the item is that, are we going to then approve the half-size memorial for the new Garden of Remembrance, or do we need the chief officer to return with something else? I'm a bit,
I'd like to move that we approve it, but subject to further consideration as to how much latitude of variation is allowed.
Perhaps if we're happy to approve the size,
Yeah.
that's in keeping with the design, so we can move forward with
size
that.
and design, but then think about colour and text.
And perhaps if we go have a trek round again and have a look at some
Yeah.
of the places where you can see things that are all the same, or where there's a variation of styles, perhaps we
Yeah.
come back with something like that.
But I'd like to move that.
Okay, so seconded by councillor Proudlove. All those in favour? Yeah, unanimous. Okay, item 63, jobs for the Lensman. Do we have any? Mr Mayor?
Very, very conscious of not overburdening the Lensman because of the cost issues and things. There is the footpath which links down the side of Washington Close to Mile Lane, which he has traditionally done. Pains me to request it to be done, but because of issues with ownership or whatever, I think in this instance, I would like to see if he could just do that one. It is a case of, edge cutting back as opposed to anything more remedial than that. I was just wondering, actually, have we had an invoice? You don't have to tell me about it. Have we had an invoice yet for the Biddle Valley Way work, which we did?
Counts.
Was it specifically in the accounts?
Yeah.
All right.
We've had a request from a member of the public which regards the Washington Close footpath.
Just quite.
We're going to go and have a look at it.
That might slip my mind. I'll go tomorrow. We'll report back to you tomorrow.
Yeah, whether it's the whole stretch that he's doing or individual bits.
The 3 hours, as far as I'm aware.
Yeah, so I said to the member of the public that we'd go and have a look at it, and then
So I've had lots of, I'll report back to you tomorrow on that one, so.
Retirement does to you, councillor Rogers. Councillor Jackson.
Yeah, I think it probably comes under this. The £500 that councillor Flunder has got left in his, would that be the Lensman doing anything that crops up on Middle Feasts? This is just because I think I said 3 footpaths that might need attention. I haven't actually walked down them or anything, but would that be the Lensman that does that work? Or I'm not sure. I know it's 500 quid, but I don't know the mechanics about how it's going to be used.
Yeah,
yeah, sorry. The county are quite keen to work with them. He's one of our approved providers, so that's the sort of work that he does for us. So I've been in contact with the Lensman. He can do all 3 of those that you put forward for the amount of money. So, and I've had a brief conversation with Councillor Flunder this evening, and he's happy with funds for that as well. But as a slight aside, he's got some additional funds for leaflets for kind of promotion of safer parking around schools as well. So we've got some discussion potentially around that tomorrow at the Transport Working Group.
Okay.
That would be absolutely funded by Council Fund.
All right. Happy days.
Councillor Kasicki.
Wasn't it the case that we were looking at who was responsible for maintaining these footpaths in the East Ward? Particularly your housing group. Surely, if it is their responsibility, they must have somebody who can maintain those paths on a regular basis.
Point of information?
Yeah, basically it's multiple ownership, and I did speak to the general manager, for want of a better term, at Your Housing, and it is actually a private, on the right to buy. Quite a few of those properties are no longer Your Housing properties, and it turns out that the hedge is adjacent to a property which is no longer Your Housing, and the significant hedge is actually bordered onto a property where I think the other ones, nobody's living in the house now, is there?
Well, it's,
Your house.
I know it's.
They're on the other side of the footpath. Just saying it's multiple ownership.
Ownership.
Your housing one. Your housing one isn't your housing. It's right. It's a right to buy one private property.
I know the family, or I know of the family. Oh, I'll check it out tomorrow anyway.
Yeah, there is one area, the seat opposite the Matador, one of the wooden things is completely broken. So that needs repairing. So I don't know whether that's something the lensman could.
Saw you while you were down there, councillor.
Yes,
Sicky.
I'm along there quite often.
Yes, with your high vis jacket on.
Afraid to foreign territory.
Out in a rash green.
Yes,
Is that thing that the lensman, is that?
Well, those benches were installed by Biddulph Bloom, so in the first instance, I'll ask if they've got the slats to repair that and what their plan is with benches. I know they did have a programme for maintaining those that they'd installed. They had a look.
That was maintained by Alan and Helen over a number of years. She always used to varnish the seats, so I don't know whether they would be repairing that. I would think it would be more
No, either.
on council.
Well, they haven't been officially handed to us or offered to us, whatever the process might be there. Where we've installed the benches, we've bought the slats for them before, but it being the company that it is, they're not mega cheap.
Weren't they money that was provided from the Coalfields community campaign?
With Coalfields Community Campaign. No.
Some seats.
It may have been, yeah, Coalfields Regeneration Trust may have done. I don't know, but I would have imagined it. Was it Biddulph Bloom that held it that pushed for that seat?
No.
It is a kind of thing they used to do. I don't know whether that. I think this is the thing that, you know, we as a town council, taking on stuff that we are not responsible for, that, you know, other organisations have done. And, you know, I've been critical of, you know, about things like the light switch on, the middle chamber kicking all that off, but we've ended up with all the running costs and the bills. And it's, you know, I think as a town council, we need to be very wary about taking stuff on that are not really a responsibility of ours. There's other organisations that have actually done that.
Maintaining a public seat is a minor thing in the scheme of money that's raised by the town council.
I think it's what
We do, but
Yeah.
So
we do.
The way I see it, the chief officer, you're going to have a word with Biddulph Bloom.
yeah, it's definitely not one of our benches at the moment, but I don't know what their programme is as regards.
But there's an agreement that it needs to be sorted.
Well, if it's broken, then
Yes.
it's a health and safety risk.
Absolutely. Which actually, I mean, the way the conversation just gone at the end, so now I need to just say at this point, farewell to the public. Not quite literally. Because actually the conversation has switched to assets and things that don't belong to Biddulph Town Council. So as we move into confidential, and obviously